Everybody Hates Chris cast. Then and Now 2005 vs 2026. You'll be shocked. In 2005, Everybody Hates Chris introduced us to a cast that felt unforgettable. More than 20 years later, some look completely different. Some became even bigger stars, and others found surprising new paths. So where are they now in 2026? Stay with us and subscribe to Black Legends Revealed for more unforgettable then and now stories. Tyler James Williams. When Everybody Hates. Chris premiered in September 2005. Tyler James Williams was only 12 years old, yet he was carrying an entire sitcom. As the fictionalized young Chris Rock, he turned school humiliation, strict parenting, and everyday frustration into comedy without losing the vulnerability that made Chris feel real. 4 seasons later, Williams was closely associated with the character, but adulthood forced him to prove he could be more than a former child star. After the series ended, Williams moved into very different roles. He starred in the 2014 film Dear White People, appeared in Season 5 of The Walking Dead, and took a dramatic role in Detroit in 2017. Behind the scenes, he was also dealing with Crohn's disease diagnosed in 2015, which he has said led to hospitalization and multiple surgeries. Would you have expected the teenager playing Chris to become one of television's most acclaimed adult sitcom actors nearly 2 decades later? His biggest second act arrived with Abbott Elementary. As first-grade teacher, Gregory Eddie Williams reached a new generation and won a Golden Globe in 2023. He later directed an episode during the show's 4th season. By 2026, Abbott Elementary had completed its 5th season, with Williams still central to the series, and ABC had renewed it for Season 6. The visual difference from 2005 is striking. The skinny, anxious teenager audiences remember is now a polished adult leading man. More importantly, at 33, Williams has achieved what many child actors never do. He has built a second signature role strong enough to stand completely apart from Chris Rock. Antonio Fargas. When Antonio Fargas appeared on Everybody Hates Chris, he already carried decades of television and film history with him. As Doc Harris, the neighborhood store owner who employed Chris Fargus, gave the series a different presence. Calm, streetwise, funny, and experienced enough to offer advice without sounding like another parent. Across the original run, Fargus appeared in dozens of episodes, making Doc one of the sitcom's most recognizable recurring adults. Long before Chris walked into Doc's store, Fargus had become famous as Huggy Bear on Starsky and Hutch. He had also appeared in Shaft Across 110th Street and Foxy Brown, making him instantly familiar to viewers who remembered black cinema and television of the 1970s. Did you realize the man behind Doc had already been a recognizable screen personality for more than 3 decades before Everybody Hates Chris? After the sitcom ended in 2009, Fargus continued acting, later appearing in projects including Black Lightning and the 2023 film 1 Year Off. Then came an unexpected return. In 2024, Everybody Still Hates. Chris revived the franchise in animation, and Fargus returned to voice Doc Harris himself in multiple episodes. By 2026, Fargus had turned 80, creating one of the cast's strongest then and now comparisons. The face audiences once knew as Huggy Bear had aged naturally, but the voice and manner that made Doc memorable were still recognizable enough to bring him back nearly 20 years later. Imani Hakim. When Everybody Hates. Chris premiered in 2005. Imani Hakim was only 12 years old, but Tanya Rock quickly became one of the show's funniest weapons. As Chris's clever, spoiled younger sister, Tanya could manipulate her brothers, charm her parents, and escape trouble with almost no effort. Hakim stayed with the sitcom through all 4 seasons, growing up on screen while audiences watched Tanya change from a mischievous little sister into a teenager. After the series ended in 2009, Hakim avoided being permanently trapped by the character. She appeared in projects including The Gabby Douglas Story, portraying Olympic champion Gabby Douglas, before finding her most substantial adult television role as Dana in Apple TV Plus's Mythic Quest. The series allowed her to play a much more mature character navigating ambition, relationships, and the video game industry. Would you have recognized the little girl who played Tanya as the same woman directing television episodes nearly 20 years later? That became reality during Mythic Quest Season 4. Hakim directed episode 7, The Room Where It Happens, marking her first episode as a television director. She described directing as a long-held goal and said the experience made her eager to work behind the camera again. Her personal life changed just as dramatically. Hakim became engaged and welcomed her first child in 2025. By 2026, Mythic Quest had ended after 4 seasons, leaving Hakim at a very different point from where audiences first met her. Tanya Rock was once the youngest member of the family, while Hakim is now an adult actress-director and mother building the next stage of her career. Jackée Harry. When Jackée Harry joined Everybody Hates Chris in 2006, she was already a television legend. As Vanessa Rochelle's bubbly, sharp-tongued friend from the neighborhood beauty salon, Harry brought the comic energy that had made her famous years earlier. Long before Vanessa, she played Sandra Clark on 227, winning an Emmy in 1987, and later became beloved as Lisa Landry on Sister Sister. Did you realize Vanessa was played by one of the most accomplished sitcom actresses in the entire Everybody Hates Chris cast? After the series ended in 2009, Harry kept working steadily. She appeared in shows including The Pains and Pose, and in 2021 joined Days of Our Lives as Paulina Price. Her connection to Everybody Hates Chris eventually came full circle. When the animated continuation, Everybody Still Hates Chris premiered in 2024, Harry returned to voice Vanessa again across multiple episodes. By 2026, the difference from her first appearance 20 years earlier was especially noticeable. At 69, Harry remained active on Days of Our Lives and had also spoken publicly about undergoing a deep plane facelift after considering the procedure for years. She said she wanted a refreshed appearance without losing the face audiences recognized. Vanessa was never one of the Rock household's main characters, but Jackée Harry's career stretches across generations of black television. 2 decades after joining Chris's neighborhood, she was still working and had even returned to the same character that connected her to the series. Ernest Lee Thomas. When Ernest Lee Thomas joined Everybody Hates Chris in 2006 as Mr. Omar, he was already familiar to generations of television viewers. Mr. Omar, the funeral director who seemed strangely comfortable discussing death, became one of the show's most memorable recurring adults. Thomas appeared in 34 episodes, often delivering his trademark tragic with timing that made even dark situations funny. Long before Chris Rock's sitcom, Thomas had become famous as Roger Raj, Thomas on What's Happening in the 1970s. He later reprised Raj in What's Happening Now and appeared in Spike Lee's Malcolm X, giving him a career that already stretched across several eras of black television before he entered Chris's Brooklyn neighborhood. Did you realize Mr. Omar was played by an actor who had already been a sitcom star nearly 30 years earlier? After Everybody Hates Chris ended in 2009. Thomas continued appearing in film and television. Then in 2024, his connection to the franchise came back to life. Comedy Central brought him back to reprise Mr. Omar in the animated continuation Everybody Still Hates Chris, where he appeared repeatedly during the first season. By 2026, Thomas was still publicly active, including interviews in 2025, reflecting on What's Happening Hollywood and his long career. The then and now contrast is striking. The familiar funeral director is now a veteran performer with more than 50 years in entertainment. Yet Mr. Omar remained recognizable enough to return almost 2 decades later. Tequan Richmond. When Everybody Hates Chris premiered in 2005, Tequan Richmond was only 12 years old. As Drew Rock, Chris's younger brother, he was everything Chris wished he could be: cooler, more confident, naturally popular, and seemingly able to attract girls without even trying. Richmond remained a series regular through all 4 seasons, so audiences literally watched him grow from a child into a teenager on screen. After the sitcom ended, Richmond made one of the strongest transitions among the younger cast members. From 2012 to 2018, he played T.J. Ashford on ABC's General Hospital. The dramatic role was a major departure from Drew and earned Richmond 3 consecutive Daytime Emmy nominations in 2015, 2016, and 2017 for Outstanding Younger Actor in a Drama Series. Would you have expected Chris's effortlessly cool little brother to become an Emmy-nominated soap opera actor years later? Richmond then stepped into another leading role as Bryson Breuer in BET's Boomerang, the television continuation, inspired by the 1992 Eddie Murphy film. The series ran for 2 seasons from 2019 to 2020, with Richmond playing an ambitious young marketing professional, navigating work, friendship, and romance. By 2026, Richmond is 33, and the difference from the boy audiences met in 2005 is dramatic. His acting career has been quieter publicly in recent years, but Drew Rock was far from his only successful role. From an 88-episode childhood sitcom run to General Hospital and Boomerang, Richmond successfully carried his career well into adulthood. Tisha Campbell. Tisha Campbell joined Everybody Hates Chris later than the principal cast, first appearing in 2008 as Peaches Clarkson, Tasha's outspoken mother. By then, Campbell was already instantly recognizable from Martin and My Wife and Kids, so even 4 appearances gave Peaches considerably more presence than her screen time suggested. She brought the same sharp comedic rhythm that had made her a black sitcom favorite throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. Did you ever expect Peaches to return to Chris Rock's world more than 15 years after the original sitcom ended? That is exactly what happened. When the animated continuation, Everybody Still Hates Chris premiered in 2024, Campbell joined the guest cast and returned as Peaches, appearing across several episodes. The comeback created a rare then-and-now connection. Audiences could revisit a character Campbell had last played in live action in 2009. By 2026, Campbell was 57 and still working steadily. She appeared in the Lifetime film Be Happy, played Sheila Jackson on The Ms. Pat Show, and continued adding television and film roles to a career stretching back more than 4 decades. The woman viewers remember as Peaches now looks noticeably different from her late 2000s sitcom days, but Campbell never disappeared from television. Instead, she remained active long enough to actually return to the same fictional neighborhood years later. Ari Cruz. Before Julius Rock became famous for calculating the cost of every spilled drink, wasted light bulb, and unnecessary expense, Terry Crews was still trying to establish himself as an actor. A former NFL player with an imposing physique, he seemed built for action roles, yet Everybody Hates Chris revealed something audiences had not fully seen before: his ability to make an exhausted penny-counting father genuinely hilarious. Julius became one of the sitcom's most quoted characters. Crews played him as a man constantly working, constantly tired, and somehow aware of exactly how much everything in the house cost. That role helped push Crews far beyond the big muscular guy parts he had often been offered earlier in Hollywood. Did you ever expect the actor playing Chris's famously cheap father to become one of the most recognizable comedy stars on television? After the series ended, Crews' career expanded rapidly. He joined the Expendables franchise, spent 8 seasons playing Terry Jeffords on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and became the host of America's Got Talent. His face remained everywhere, even as the young Julius audiences remembered gradually became a much older version of the man. Then came an unexpected return. In 2024, Crews stepped back into the Rock family by voicing Julius in the animated continuation Everybody Still Hates Chris alongside Tichina Arnold and Chris Rock. By 2026, Crews was 58. The transformation from the younger, tightly wound Julius of the mid-2000s is obvious, but the booming voice, physical comedy, and unmistakable energy remain almost unchanged. Nearly 20 years later, he was not simply remembered as Julius, he was playing him again. Michel Estime. Long before audiences knew Michel Estime as risky, he had already spent years building a career in comedy and television. On Everybody Hates Chris, Risky became one of the neighborhood's recurring hustlers, the kind of character who always seemed to have a deal or questionable business idea ready. Estime first appeared during Season 1 and returned repeatedly across the show's 4-season run, giving Bed-Stuy another familiar face beyond the Rock household. Did you expect the actor behind Risky to remain connected to black sitcoms nearly 20 years later? After Everybody Hates Chris ended, Estime continued working in front of and behind the camera. He appeared in projects including Hand of God and The Neighborhood, while also building credits as a writer, producer, and director. His most visible later role came on Netflix's The Upshaws, where he played Tony, one of Benny Upshaw's longtime friends and co-workers. The series continued through 2026, placing Estime inside another working-class black family comedy for a new generation. His connection to Chris Rock's world also returned. In 2024, Estime reprised Risky as a voice performer in the animated continuation Everybody Still Hates Chris, appearing in several episodes. By 2026, Estime looked far removed from the younger neighborhood hustler viewers met in the mid-2000s, but his career had come full circle. Risky was back, while Estime was simultaneously part of another successful black sitcom. Jeris Poindexter. Few supporting characters on Everybody Hates Chris were as strange or as unforgettable as Kill Moves, played by Jeris Poindexter. The neighborhood homeless man could go from sleeping in a cardboard box to suddenly demonstrating martial arts, giving surprisingly intelligent advice, or revealing pieces of a much more complicated past. Poindexter appeared in 34 episodes between 2005 and 2009, making Kill Moves one of the show's most familiar recurring faces. Before joining Chris Rock's sitcom, Poindexter had already built a long career through television and film, but Kill Moves became the character many younger viewers remembered him for most. His unpredictable behavior and exaggerated confidence gave even short appearances an instantly recognizable comic rhythm. Did you ever expect the eccentric man living on Chris's block to return to the franchise almost 20 years later? Poindexter continued acting after the original series with later appearances, including The Chi in 2022. Then, in 2024, he returned to the role that had made him so recognizable to Everybody Hates Chris fans. In the animated continuation, Everybody Still Hates Chris, Poindexter voiced Kill Moves again across 6 episodes, reconnecting the older actor directly with the character audiences first saw decades earlier. By 2026, Poindexter looked considerably older than the wiry neighborhood character viewers remembered, but that made the comparison even stronger. Kill Moves had gone from a recurring live-action oddball to an animated return voiced by the same man who created him. Paige Hurd. Paige Hurd entered Everybody Hates Chris as Tasha Clarkson, the girl next door. Chris could never quite figure out. Introduced after Keisha moved away, Tasha became Chris's biggest crush, friendly enough to keep his hopes alive but unpredictable enough to make almost every romantic attempt painfully awkward. Hurd's chemistry with Tyler James Williams made Tasha one of the show's most memorable recurring characters. Hurd was still a teenager during those years, but she already had experience in movies and television, including Cradle 2, The Grave, and The Cat in the Hat. After Everybody Hates Chris, she gradually moved away from teenage roles and into more mature drama, eventually playing Gail Franklin on Tyler Perry's The Oval and Lauren Baldwin on Power Book 2, Ghost. Did you recognize Tasha immediately when Paige Hurd resurfaced years later in a much darker role on Power Book 2, Ghost? By the 2020s, Hurd looked completely different from the teenage neighbor Chris spent seasons chasing. Her polished adult image introduced her to viewers who may never have realized she once belonged to the Everybody Hates Chris universe. Her life changed again in 2026. On July 18th, Hurd, then 34, married NBA player Royce O'Neal at Oheka Castle in New York after the couple became engaged in 2025. For longtime fans, the contrast is striking. Tasha was once the teenage crush standing next door to Chris. More than 20 years later, Paige Hurd had grown into an established actress with major drama credits and an entirely new chapter in her personal life. Tichina Arnold. Rochelle Rock never needed many seconds to take over a scene. Tichina Arnold gave Chris's mother a mix of explosive temper, fierce affection, and perfect comic timing, turning lines about quitting jobs or reminding everyone that her husband had 2 jobs into some of Everybody Hates Chris's most recognizable moments. By 2005, Arnold was already familiar to black television audiences from Martin, but Rochelle introduced her to an entirely new generation. After the sitcom ended in 2009, Arnold avoided the career slowdown that often follows such a defining character. She continued appearing across television before landing another long-running sitcom role as Tina Butler on CBS's The Neighborhood in 2018. She also moved behind the camera directing episodes of the series while remaining part of its central cast. Did you ever imagine the actress behind Rochelle would still be playing major sitcom mothers more than 20 years later? Her connection to the Rock family eventually came back around. In 2024, Arnold officially reprised Rochelle for the animated continuation, Everybody Still Hates Chris, joining Terry Crews as Julius and Chris Rock as narrator. Instead of replacing the parents with new performers, the revival brought back the voices that audiences already associated with the characters. By 2026, Arnold was 57 and still highly visible. The Neighborhood had reached its 8th and final season, while she was also joining Netflix's upcoming A Different World sequel series. The Rochelle audiences remember from the mid-2000s has naturally changed with time, but Arnold's voice expressions and commanding comic presence remain unmistakable. 2 decades later, she is still closely tied to the character and still working at the center of black television comedy. Jacqueline Mazarella. Jacqueline Mazarella became unforgettable on Everybody Hates Chris without ever being part of the Rock family. As Ms. Morello, Chris's well-meaning teacher, she delivered some of the show's most uncomfortable jokes with complete sincerity. Her character genuinely believed she was helping Chris while constantly making stereotypical assumptions about his family and black culture. That awkward contrast made Morello one of the sitcom's funniest recurring characters, appearing in 48 episodes between 2005 and 2009. Mazarella had a strong theater background before the series and later expanded beyond acting into writing and producing. She created and starred in the comedy web series The Oversharer and continued taking television roles after Everybody Hates Chris, including appearances in Fresh Off the Boat, Jane the Virgin, and The Morning Show. Did you ever imagine Chris's painfully awkward teacher would still be connected to the franchise almost 20 years later? That is exactly what happened in 2024. Mazarella returned to voice Principal Vivian Morello in Everybody Still Hates Chris, joining several original recurring actors who reprised their characters for the animated continuation. Her career was still active afterward. In 2025, she appeared as Sarah in an episode of Grey's Anatomy. By 2026, Mazarella looked naturally older than the teacher viewers first met 2 decades earlier, but Ms. Morello had not simply become an old sitcom memory. The actress actually returned to the character, giving longtime fans a rare chance to hear Chris's unforgettable teacher again. Todd Bridges. Todd Bridges entered Everybody Hates Chris, carrying a television history that stretched back to the 1970s. Audiences first knew him as Willis Jackson on Different Strokes, but in Chris Rock's sitcom, he appeared as Monk Doc's nephew and a recently released ex-con trying to rebuild his life. Bridges first played Monk in 2007 and ultimately appeared in 17 episodes through the end of the series in 2009. Monk was a supporting character, but Bridges gave him extra weight because viewers already knew how turbulent his own life had been after childhood fame. By the time he joined the show, he had survived years of addiction and legal trouble and was already well into the sobriety that would later become one of the defining achievements of his adult life. Did you realize the actor playing Monk had once been one of the most famous child stars on American television? Bridges kept working after Everybody Hates Chris, but the most fitting comeback came in 2024. He returned to voice Monk in the animated continuation Everybody Still Hates Chris, nearly 2 decades after first playing him in live action. Bridges said he enjoyed returning because he believed the original series ended too soon and valued its positive portrayal of a black family. By 2026, Bridges was 61 and had been sober for more than 3 decades. He was still making public appearances and discussing his long career from Different Strokes to Chris Rock's World. The teenager America once watched grow up had become one of the veteran performers still connected to the franchise decades later. J.B. Smoove. Manny's Barbershop gave Chris one of those rare places where adults could offer advice and still make everything sound ridiculous. J.B. Smoove played the fast-talking barber during the 3rd season of Everybody Hates Chris, appearing in 11 episodes between 2007 and 2008. Manny was never part of the Rock household, but his confidence jokes and neighborhood wisdom made him an easy recurring character to remember. What makes Smoove's Then and Now story unusual is that his biggest television breakthrough arrived almost simultaneously. In 2007, he joined HBO's Curb Your Enthusiasm as Leon Black. His improvisational chemistry with Larry David transformed Leon into one of the show's defining characters, and Smoove remained part of the series through its 12th and final season in 2024. Did you realize Manny disappeared from Chris's neighborhood just as JB Smoove was beginning the role that would completely change his career after Everybody Hates? Chris Smoove's visibility grew dramatically. He appeared in Spider-Man Far From Home and Spider-Man No Way Home while also voicing Frank the Plant on Harley Quinn. By 2026, Smoove was 60 and still active with credits including High on Life 2 and The Proud Family Louder and Prouder. The younger barber audiences remember from 2007 now looks noticeably older, but the rapid-fire delivery remains unmistakable. Manny was only a short chapter of his career. Leon Black became the character that kept Smoove visible on television for nearly 2 decades. Kevontay Jackson. Few recurring characters on Everybody Hates. Chris needed as little screen time to become instantly recognizable as Jerome. Played by Kevontay Jackson, the neighborhood hustler usually appeared with the same greeting for Chris Little Dude from across the street, followed by his familiar request to hold $1. What began as intimidation gradually became a strange friendship with Jerome, sometimes offering Chris advice while still finding ways to take his money. Jackson ultimately appeared as Jerome in 35 episodes between 2005 and 2009. After the sitcom, Jackson continued acting instead of disappearing from television. His later credits included Mad Men, Southland, Heart of Dixie, Dear White People, Lopez, and Animal Kingdom, giving him a career that extended well beyond his Bed-Stuy character. Did you ever expect the guy constantly taking Chris's dollar to return as Jerome almost 20 years later? That is exactly what happened. In 2024, Comedy Central revived the franchise as Everybody Still Hates Chris, and Jackson was among several original recurring actors invited back to reprise their roles. He again voiced Jerome, including appearances alongside returning characters such as Risky Doc Vanessa and Kill Moves. By 2026, Jackson's connection to the series had stretched across 2 decades. He looked considerably older than the streetwise young Jerome viewers remembered, but the character's voice, attitude, and unmistakable catchphrase had survived long enough to introduce him to another generation. Nearly 2 decades after Everybody Hates, Chris ended the cast has changed in ways few viewers could have predicted. Some grew from child stars into successful adult actors. Others built long careers away from the spotlight, and several even returned to their original characters in Everybody Still Hates Chris. But the memories of Chris, Julius, Rochelle, Drew, Tanya, Greg, and the rest of Bed-Stuy never really disappeared. Which cast member changed the most in your eyes? Share your answer in the comments and subscribe to Black Legends Revealed for more then and now stories about the stars and shows you grew up watching.